Hey, 42 here. In Athens, in the state of Georgia, there is a tree that owns itself. This tree is the only tree in the world that is the legal landowner of the land it lives upon. Having fond memories of the tree when growing up, the landowner William H. Jackson wanted to protect the tree forever. So in the early 1800s, he went to court and transferred the deeds for the land in an 8-foot radius around the tree from himself to the tree. To this day, the legality of the tree's property rights have never been questioned. Planet Earth has 57 million square miles of land, or 36 billion acres. And until the day comes when we set foot on other planets, that's all the land we have. Land, therefore, is the most limited commodity we have. Thus, it comes at a great price. As the population increases and more homes are needed to house the next generation, the demand for land increases. In the past 10 years alone, land prices have trebled in some countries. But who owns the world? And I'm not talking about power or money, but the actual earth you stand upon. From the wilds of Alaska to Mongolia, who really owns the dirt and gravel beneath your feet? And more importantly, who owns your house and the land it sits on? Is it really you? Or is it in fact the bank, the government, or some kind of landed gentry? Let's start with America and its 2.3 billion acres of land across 50 states. The biggest landowner in America is cable billionaire John Malone, who owns a staggering 2.2 million acres. He owns enormous ranches in Wyoming, New Mexico, and Colorado. Oh, he also owns Humewood Castle in Ireland because he thought it was pretty. Malone is closely followed by Ted Turner, who owns 2 million acres of American land across 7 states. He is a media mogul who founded CNN. Turner's land includes 14 ranches, 28 homes, and the world's largest herd of privately owned bison. He also has 4 girlfriends. He spends a week with each one per month, because if you're a 78-year-old billionaire who owns a massive chunk of America, then why the hell not? An Englishman's home is his castle. No matter how big or small, your humble abode is yours, and no one can ever take it away from you. Or can they? And come to think of it, is it really yours? If you own your home via leasehold, then you have zero right to the ownership of your property or its land. Absolutely none. You are simply renting the property and have decided to pay for the next 99 years' rent up front. The freeholder is the true owner of the land and everything upon it. He or she is your landlord for the next 99 plus years. If you are wealthy enough to own a flat or even a house in London, then you probably don't actually own it or the land. This guy does instead. 26-year-old Hugh Grosvenor, the 7th Duke of Westminster, who owns about half of London. He is worth over £12 billion, making him the richest person under 30 years old in the world. And you are simply renting from him for a very, very long time. But what if you do own the freehold to your property? And what if you've paid off your mortgage with no interference from the bank? Then you must be the one true owner of your castle and its land. Well, not quite. I'm sorry to burst your dream of setting up your own country in your back garden, but you don't truly own any land. In fact, not many people do. There's a centuries-old doctrine of law called absolute land ownership, which is fuzzy at best, but it means that you may hold the right to a piece of land and its title, but you don't absolutely own it. In most countries, the government owns the entirety of the land in that country. All you own is the title to that land, giving you certain rights to it, but not absolute ownership. And the government can forcefully buy your house and land off you and evict you at any time. If, for example, they wish to build a bypass through your home. Well, you've got to build bypasses. This is true for every country in the world. After all, if the government didn't own 100% of the land within that country, then it wouldn't really be a complete country now, would it? it would be Spain minus all these little plots of land where people have purchased property. Each property owner would essentially own their own little country, and maps of the world would get really, really complicated. So countries just have to own 100% of their land in order to create and enforce laws within their boundaries. But in truth, there is no such thing as outright true land ownership. The laws surrounding land ownership are really messy, and they change completely depending on which country you're in. In reality, you have essentially paid for some rights over a piece of land, but your rights to the land are overlapped by the rights of other bodies, such as the government and the monarchy, if there is one. Speaking of monarchies, that's when things get really complicated. For example, in England, the absolute landowner is not the government, but the Crown, an independent body who acts on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen. Queen Elizabeth II owns every square inch of land of the United Kingdom. When you buy a property in the UK, you are simply put on a map called the Land Registry to identify that you own the title to that plot of land. In reality, you don't own the land, you hold it. You are a tenant of the Crown. If you were to really buy that land outright, then you would have to draw up a sales contract between you, Her Majesty the Queen, and the government, who have certain historic legal ties with the Crown. But that would just be one less place for Elizabeth to drive her Land Rover and walk her corgis, so I don't think that's going to happen. One element of the law that exemplifies the fact that you don't actually own your own land is that if you strike oil on your private land in the UK, you have no rights to it. The Crown automatically owns any oil or other valuable minerals found below private properties, and all you're entitled to is compensation to replace the soil once all the oil has been extracted and sold for lots and lots of money, none of which you will ever see. But the British Isles is not all that Her Majesty the Queen owns. Far from it. As a matter of fact, Queen Elizabeth II is the largest landowner in the world, by a large margin. The Queen owns 1/6 of the Earth's land. And she is the only person in the world that owns entire countries. Queen Elizabeth II owns 6.6 billion acres of land, and she is head of state of 16 countries, collectively known as the Commonwealth Realm. She owns the entire countries of Canada and Australia, which are the second and sixth largest countries in the world, respectively. The Queen's total land holdings are worth an estimated £25 trillion, which makes her, by a considerable margin, the wealthiest person on the planet. But it's not quite as simple as that. She is more of a ceremonial owner of said countries. While she does technically own the land, the individual countries' governments have ownership of the titles of the lands, and they profit from it. The Crown doesn't actually see any profit from much of its land holdings. Because of this, the Queen's actual estimated wealth is somewhere around £275 million. I mean, that's not to be sniffed at, but it's rather measly for somebody who owns 1/6 of the planet, excluding oceans. She also owns a drive-through McDonald's in Slough, because why not when you're Queen? But, symbolic or not, she is undoubtedly the world's largest landholder. So, who then is following in her footsteps? Well, that would be King Salman of Saudi Arabia, who inherited the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia after the recent death of his half-brother, King Abdullah. He owns 553 million acres in total, just 8% of what the Queen owns. But those 553 million acres are rich in oil, which gives the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia a GDP of $646 billion. At number 3 on the landowner list is none other than Pope Francis. The Pope owns the Vatican City, which is its own nation state. But isn't the Vatican City also the smallest country in the world? Yes, it most definitely is, at just 108 acres. So then, how does that make the Pope the world's third largest landowner? Well, the Roman Catholic Church actually owns 177 million acres of land worldwide, which means that the Pope owns 177 million acres of land. That of course includes every one of their religious institutions, dioceses, and the Vatican-owned embassies to the Holy See, which are in 81 countries. If all land was divided equally between every person on the planet, then every single person would own roughly 5 acres of land, just over 3 football pitches each. But of course, it isn't. Land ownership has always been about power, wealth, and social class, and it still is. Every time you mow your lawn, you are imitating the aristocrats of the past. In a very figurative sense, of course, because wealthy aristocrats definitely didn't mow their own lawns. You see, the reason that lawns were invented in the first place was to show off and demonstrate power. It was a way of saying, hey, look everyone, we're so rich we can afford to own and maintain vast areas of land which we have no real use for. But look, isn't it impressive, with its shrubberies, mazes and fountains? Yes, lots and lots of fountains. In medieval times, 100% of the land your average person owned was used to either build upon and live in, or to grow food to feed your family. Most people would starve if they decided to grow topiary instead of cabbages. You can't eat topiary. I've tried. So, wealthy kings, princes, lords and ladies would purposely clear all trees from their excessive areas of unused land and grow grass upon it instead, creating a meadow or lawn. This served 2 purposes. Firstly, it was now far easier to spot people trying to invade their castle, and secondly, they could now show off how much spare land they had lying around. This was even more impressive back then, because of course, the lawnmower didn't exist. Neatly trimmed grass lawns had to be painstakingly cut by hand by servants wielding scythes and shears. The Palace of Versailles is a prime example of this showy offery. Even with modern gardening tools, the amount of money, time and manpower that goes into maintaining a garden this stunning is rather impressive. The trend of maintaining lawns to impress others has continued throughout the centuries, and although the lawns have become significantly smaller with an ever-increasing population, your neighbour will probably still sneer at it if you don't keep it nicely trimmed, because this medieval tradition has become ingrained within our culture. But who cares if it's exorbitant and completely unnecessary? You are the king of your castle. And okay, you don't actually own your castle, but who cares? Get out there and mow your lawn. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please click here to support me on Patreon, which helps me to make better videos, and you can get some pretty cool rewards. Click here to watch another video, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe.